came as one that was to serve, and we are called to do nothing less. We were all put here for this time. 1 Peter 2:9 tells us that we are a chosen generation. We are called, and we are here for a purpose. And that purpose is to commit our lives to God and fulfill the calling that He has placed on us. Our purpose is to live a life that is dedicated to serving God and serving others. When God gave the Great Commission to the disciples, He did not intend for it to stop there. We, as servants of God, are supposed to continue fulfilling that commission that was given way back then. And the awesome thing about serving in the kingdom is that we all play very different but very vital roles. Each of us are so important to the kingdom, but I fear that sometimes we forget our role in the kingdom. We compare ourselves. I've played the comparing game, and that will do nothing but destroy you. Your ministry is not supposed to look like so-and-so on the left or the right. Your ministry is supposed to be what God has called it to be. And so too often we forget our importance and our role in the kingdom. But if we are a committed servant, we have to commit to doing His will for our lives, regardless of what that means, and doing whatever it takes to fulfill it. And that brings me to my next point. Being a committed servant sometimes means enduring rejection. Even as a child, Samuel had a servant's heart. He was faithful to the call that God had placed on his life. He was sensitive to the voice of the Lord and continued following after the Lord. He was someone that the people of Israel could look up to and consult on difficult topics. But after he appointed his sons as Israel's leaders, the people began to ask for a king. They didn't like the direction that the nation was headed in. And Samuel, as any person would feel, kind of began to feel rejected. He was upset. He didn't like what these people were wanting. But then God told him, He said, listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king. So Samuel listened to God. Even though he didn't agree, he was submitted to spiritual authority, and he was committed to serving the kingdom, and so he did as God had asked him to do. When you are committed to following God, there will be times that people are not going to understand what you are doing. They're not going to understand the decisions you make, your motives, your sacrifices. They just won't get it. But the thing is, you can't let that stop you from fulfilling what God has called you to do. You have to say, God, I commit regardless of what these people are telling me, regardless of the objections, regardless of what they are saying about me. I'm going to commit to the calling. I'm going to dedicate my life to serving you. And the thing is, when people reject us, it's not that they're just rejecting us, they're rejecting God. When we are on His mission, it's not us that they're rejecting. So we have to stay dedicated. Samuel understood that this life was not made to serve ourselves. He realized that God's intention was for us to serve others. Samuel didn't just say he was a servant. Rather, he lived out a lifestyle that constantly proved that he was a servant. And we should do the same thing. The next thing that I believe that being a committed servant means is a willingness to sacrifice and make difficult decisions. Samuel was willing to do whatever God asked him to do. At the very beginning of when he was first called, the night that he was called, God began to speak to him and say that Eli's family was going to be judged. And when Eli came to him the very next